By way of introduction, I'm Keith Darcy. I've been around this ethics world for a long time, but let me kind of take a trip backwards a little bit to tell you how accidentally I stepped into this world. Probably three strains that are worth mentioning in this. I've had three parallel careers. One has been in business, especially in the financial services industry. I'll come back to that in a second. Did about 40 years in it. I ran three financial service companies, a bank, an insurance company, and a derivatives trading company. And when I retired some 20 years ago, I joined the board of two national banks. So I've had C-suite and governing authority experiences, which were very valuable to me as we went forward. I've also been an educator for over 45 years. I used to teach nights and weekends, full semester courses. For 10 years, I taught economics and finance, both undergraduate and graduate. And then I began to realize that more and more of my finance class was time being spent on scandals, as I brought in newspapers to kind of talk to the student population. And that began to pique my interest, along with my banking career. I was seeing more and more frauds being perpetrated against banks and other things. So about 38 years ago, I turned my teaching interest to ethics and leadership, and a lot of it being self-taught. I am passionate about this field, and so that has filled me greatly over the years. And because of that, it ultimately, and I'll get to the place where the turning points come in, but it ultimately turned into not just an avocational interest, but a vocational interest, one in which I quit my career in banking to full-time be in the ethics world, whatever that meant, and I wasn't quite sure about that. As it turns out, I get a call from Prudential Securities. We have a $2 billion scandal on our hands. We need somebody to come in and build the first ethics office on Wall Street. Would you join us? I said, sure. Let's go to it. So I joined Prudential, an organization that we had been talking about up in the Boston area, the Ethics Officer Association, later renamed Ethics and Compliance Officer Association. There was a group of people, myself included, talking about bringing a cross-sector membership organization together for ethics and compliance executives, kind of modeled after the Defense Industry Initiative. You know, that was a very singular-focused industry. We were talking about a cross-industry initiative. They decided only practitioners could be members of the ECOA, as it became known for many years. And I was not yet a practitioner, but all of a sudden Prue calls me up and says, we want you to be vice president and build the first ethics office on Wall Street under a federal monitor. I said, great. So I called Mike Hoffman. I said, I'm ready to join. So I became member number 39 of the ECOA, not realizing that many years later, Gretchen Winter would call me up one day and say, hey, would you come up here and consider being the new executive director for the association? So long story short, spent 2.5, 3 years at Prue. We whacked 2,000 people. That's an HR term. A lot of bad actors that we had to get rid of and so forth. Did a lot of things to turn the culture around. Felt very positive about it. I didn't believe it was going to be a career move for me, though. So while I grew up in the banking business and I was very comfortable with the risks and threats to conventional banking, this was a broker-dealer. And it's very different. Not having grown up in the bank, I was licensed. I went out and got a securities license, but I didn't have the complete instinct for risk in this particular business as I did in banking. But then one day, somebody, the head of HR, came to me and he said, the vice chairman for risk management who you report to is retiring, so we're going to transfer the ethics function to the senior vice president for public affairs. I said, not on my watch. I said, my reputation is not for that. You're the most unethical firm on Wall Street, even though you've made a turnaround, and now you're going to put this into public affairs and market this? Not going to happen. So I was about to leave. He comes back to me an hour later. He says, the chairman says he'll double your compensation if you stay. I said, no, I'm going to be out of here. As it turns out, I get a call from Georgetown University at the same time. They're looking for an associate dean and distinguished professor of business ethics. I thought I died and went to heaven. I started a subchapter S corporation in 2002, and luckily enough became engaged with numerous Fortune 500 and major financial institutions, a lot of work on helping them set up ethics and compliance program, doing culture issues and so forth. I've been a broken record on culture for decades, and ultimately spoke often with enforcement authorities at DOJ, SEC, and elsewhere about the importance of culture. And I'd like to believe that in some small way. In fact, I'll tell you a story. So it's more than like to believe. So the ECOA is having a conference out in Arizona. It's right after Sarbanes-Oxley has passed. Sarbanes-Oxley asked the Federal Sentencing Commission to create an ad hoc committee to study changes in the federal sentencing guidelines so that it would be in alignment with Sarbanes-Oxley. Ed Petrie, who was then head of the ECOA, comes to me at this conference. Keith, I've just been appointed to this conference. Eric Holder, other luminaries are going to be on this. I mean, it was a big deal. He said, what are the top 3 things we should ask for? I said, Ed, it's simple. Culture, culture, culture. I mean, that's how powerful it is. Culture is by far the single biggest determinant of behavior in every organization in the world. Absolutely, unequivocally, bar none. It changes different cultures around the world. There are different influences to it, without question. But culture is preeminently important in managing behaviors in organizations. So, long story short, the revisions to the federal sentencing guidelines said tone at the top, ethics standards, and a culture of integrity. So now it finally became part of the law, what the enforcement authorities are looking for. With the Thompson memo, that was actually the first step that did that. And I've been talking to people at DOJ. So Larry Thompson in January of 2003 comes out with his now famous Thompson memo issued to all prosecutors across the U.S. Here's what you must consider before you prosecute a corporation: the seriousness of the offense, the pervasiveness of wrongdoing, a history of similar misconduct. There are about a dozen elements that he outlined for them. Go back to the word pervasive. The very first thing enforcement authorities look for when they come in to investigate: is this a rogue act by an individual or a small group, or is it pervasive, systemic, inculcated? Is it part of the culture of the organization? Is leadership willfully blind? This is what they look for. And I've had numerous conversations over the years with the Department of Justice about this. But we've had similar experiences. I helped set up a similar organization to ECOA in Mexico City. Did the same thing in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. I was asked by the UN Global Compact to go over to Lagos, Nigeria, which was a little scary, to set up an organization there, which we did. I spent several days over there. Had an interesting exit plan going from there. So I get to the airport. I'm about to leave after spending a few days with about 100 executives. And the customs guard is there, and he asks my passport. And my passport in those days was inches thick. And so I give it to him. He doesn't look up. He's flipping through the pages. So what was your purpose of being here? And I see, by the way, 2 of his aides walk away. Now I know I'm going to be hit up for a bribe, right? I mean, you can see it coming. I was just like, am I going to do this, or what the hell am I going to do? So he's flipping through. He said, what are you doing here? I said, I'm here with the United Nations setting up anti-corruption initiatives. He doesn't look up. He keeps flipping through the pages. Would you repeat that, please, he says. I repeat it. Then he looks up with a big grin. He said, did anybody stay to listen to you? You can't make this up. In the airport, there were signs that said, bribery will not be tolerated here. In the hotel that I stayed at, it said, money laundering will not be tolerated here. They have signs all over. You know, it'll be appropriate outside the door, but not inside the facility. I mean, it's just crazy. But so we did a lot of work there. Then we had somebody else who was from the Middle East, ran chief ethics officer for one of the sovereign wealth funds in Abu Dhabi. And he called me up one day and he said, Keith, we're trying to reduce our reliance on expatriates. Would you be open to considering bringing interns into the ECOA? I said, absolutely. So next thing you know, we're taking interns in from the Middle East and training them how to be compliance executives and so forth. And began to develop what has now been a multi-year relationship with the government of Abu Dhabi. And so it's this internationalization of this. We then helped form, I became the founding chairman of the International Association of Compliance Organizations. Ireland, US, we were the US, South Africa, and Australia. And so we were collaborating, quarterly telephonic meetings and so forth to try and share best practices as membership organizations and so forth. But I mean, it was just, to that internationalization became very important. Of course, we've had partners in Europe for many, many years as well. So the combination of all of these things and seeing the world from a different angle of vision, hearing the issues from others, not just US-centric issues, but global issues and the concerns that people have, and how can we help them, all became part of what we were trying to accomplish during this period of time. So I felt blessed and gifted.